Hello everyone, and welcome back to Isaiah for Latter-day Saints. Today we're going to be doing Isaiah 54. We got Isaiah 53 last time, but we're going to be doing Isaiah 54 coming from 3rd Nephi 22. It's slightly better. Once again, there's not a lot of textual corruption here, but it's slightly better. So let's just talk a little bit about this, though. Let's think about the context. I'm not sure how connected Isaiah 54 is to Isaiah 53. This seems to be the beginning of a thought. There may be some connections here, and we'll mention that briefly as we go along. But I think that we have the beginning of a new section here with Isaiah 54. So we're going to go through that and just talk about it in 3rd Nephi. And there's some beautiful, beautiful stuff here. So we'll talk about the text itself. We'll talk about it in the Assyrian context, but we'll talk about why Jesus is quoting it in 3rd Nephi, which is also an interesting issue. So we'll just begin at the beginning here and talk a little bit about this. Because of that, I'm just going to begin at the beginning of the chapter here in 3rd Nephi 22, which says, "And then shall that which is written come to pass. Sing, O barren, thou that didst not bear, break forth into singing, and cry aloud, thou that didst not travail with child. For more are the children of the desolate than the children of the married wife, saith the Lord. Enlarge the place of thy tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of thy habitations. Spare not, lengthen thy cord, and strengthen thy stakes. For thou shalt break forth on the right hand and on the left, and thy seed shall inherit the Gentiles, and make the desolate cities to be inhabited. Fear not, for thou shalt not be ashamed. Neither be thou confounded, for thou shalt not be put to shame. For thou shalt forget the shame of thy youth, and shalt not remember the reproach of thy youth, and shalt not remember the reproach of thy widowhood any more. For thy Maker, thy husband, the Lord of hosts is his name, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. The God of the whole earth shall he be called. For the Lord hath called thee as a woman forsaken, and grieved in spirit, and a wife of youth when thou wast refused, saith thy God. For a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. In a little wrath I hid my face from thee for a moment, but with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, saith the Lord thy Redeemer." This is beautiful, beautiful verse here. "Sing, O barren, thou that didst not bear. Break forth into singing, and cry aloud, thou that didst not travail with child." This beautiful idea of a woman who has been barren, singing, crying aloud, thou that didst not travail with child. For more are the children of the desolate than the children of the married wife, saith the Lord. You who had been desolate, suddenly everything is okay. You who thought you had lost all your children, who thought that you didn't even have any children in the first place, you who were barren, you actually have children now. It says, "Enlarge the place of thy tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of thy habitations." You need more room in your tent now to fit all your children, in other words. "Spare not, lengthen thy cords, and strengthen thy stakes." You have to lengthen out the tent cords and the stakes and where they go in the ground to fit all the people that you now have in your tent. You thought everything was barren. You thought that you were barren, that you didn't have any children. No, you actually have to expand everything to fit all the people in. And this fits well with the historical context. He's saying, you thought everybody was dead. Right now it seems like everyone is gone. Everyone's been deported by the Assyrians. But someday you're going to look around and you're going to realize that there are a lot of people here. It wasn't like that after all. "For thou shalt break forth on the right hand and on the left, and thy seed shall inherit the Gentiles, and make the desolate cities to be inhabited." It says, just like a tent spreading out and bigger, you will break forth on the right hand and on the left. You will go out everywhere. Your seed will inherit the Gentiles, actually, and inherit places formerly occupied by Gentiles, and the desolate cities will be inhabited. These places that were totally empty, the Assyrians had deported everyone, are going to get filled up again. And incidentally, I think this is where our concept of stakes come from. We have stakes in the church. I think that's what this is about. I think it comes from this, a reading of this chapter of Isaiah. Fear not, for thou shalt not be ashamed, neither shalt thou be confounded, for thou shalt not be put to shame. Thou shalt forget the shame of thy youth, and shalt not remember the reproach of thy youth. Thou shalt not remember the reproach of thy widowhood any more. It says, don't be afraid. You are not going to be ashamed anymore. You've been through all of these really hard things. You're not going to be confounded or sort of brought to nothing, you might say. Or maybe, don't be discouraged because you're not going to suffer disgrace. But in fact, you will forget the shame of your youth. The times when you had all these problems before, that is when you were younger. That was when you were your sort of crazy teenage days. We're going to put that behind us. And we're not going to deal with that anymore. As you are not going to have to deal with the reproach of your youth when you were barren. You're not going to remember the reproach of your widowhood anymore either. You're not going to remember the problems of your past are done now. And the reproach of thy youth could be from back during the Exodus, when they were doing all these bad things. So the shame of that time period is over. And the reproach of your widowhood, the period when they were almost completely wiped out, that's going to be not on the table anymore either. You're going to forget the shame of this. For thy Maker, thy husband, the Lord of hosts is his name, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the God of the whole earth shall he be called. So you're not going to have to worry about all these problems anymore. When it looks like we're down to nothing. It looks like it's just Jerusalem left. Everything's going to get filled up again. You're going to spread out through the whole earth. You're going to inherit the Gentiles. Your Maker, your husband, this relationship, this covenantal husband-wife relationship between Israel and Jehovah that we get throughout the Old Testament. He's playing that up here, saying the Lord of hosts is his name, the Lord of armies, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the one that's going to redeem you from the slavery that you've been in, the Mighty One of Israel, the God of the whole earth shall he be called. So instead of this little tiny space where it looks like everything's barren, like a woman that doesn't have any children, no, you did have children. They're everywhere, actually. That's the image that they're going to spread out and inherit all this Gentile territory even. For the Lord hath called thee as a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit, and as a wife of youth, when thou wast refused, saith thy God. As the Lord's called you like a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit. What does that mean? In other words, like a woman who has been abandoned and is now grieving and pained because of this. Like a young wife that was taken when a man was young and then was divorced and cast away. I'm calling to you like someone that has had this experience. As for a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. Said, yes, I allowed this to happen to you. I allowed the Assyrians to come in on you for a small moment. But now with great mercies will I gather everybody in that has been cast away. And that's a beautiful, beautiful image. In a little wrath I hid my face from thee for a moment. Yes, I was angry, so I hid my face from you. I did not save everybody from the Assyrians, although I did at the last minute. But with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, saith the Lord thy Redeemer. I will now have mercy on you. With everlasting kindness, I will have mercy on you. And everything's going to be okay. I'm going to redeem you. It says, for this the waters of Noah unto me, for as I have sworn that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth, so have I sworn that I would not be wroth with thee. As this is just like back with the flood. I swore during the flood the waters wouldn't go over the earth anymore, and I made an everlasting covenant about that. It's the same way with you. I'm not going to be angry with you anymore. So let's continue here. For the mountains shall depart, and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith the Lord that hath mercy on thee. O thou afflicted, tossed with tempests, and not comforted, Behold, I will lay thy stones with fair colors, and lay thy foundations with sapphires, and I will make thy windows of agates, and thy gates of carbuncles, and all thy borders of pleasant stones. And all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children. In righteousness shalt thou be established, thou shalt be far from oppression, for thou shalt not fear, and from terror, for it shall not come near thee. Behold, they shall surely gather together against thee, not by me. Whosoever shall gather together against thee shall fall for thy sake. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. I have created the waster to destroy. No weapon formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall revile against thee in judgment shalt thou condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. So then it's interesting here. He's talking about the flood. Just like I've sworn that the flood is not going to wipe people out anymore, I'm not going to have you guys be wiped out by other things anymore. For the mountains shall depart, and the hills shall be removed. Through all periods of time, even after the mountains and hills are gone, my kindness, my covenantal relationship, kindness with you, will not depart from you, will not leave you. And that word kindness is interesting. It's the Hebrew word chesed, which is sort of this idea of covenantal, permanent kindness. Covenantal, permanent sort of grace. This is the phrase full of grace and truth that we get in the Book of Mormon. Is that word grace is the word chesed, almost certainly. So that's the idea that we're getting here. My kindness shall not depart from thee. And in fact, at one point you get the phrase, all their chesed, it's the same word, is like the flower of the field. You get that in Isaiah. So it's this notion of it's supposed to be permanent. All their permanence is like the flower of the field. This, which is to say, there is none in that context. But the notion of permanent covenantal grace between God and his people is what we're seeing here. So that covenantal kindness will not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith the Lord that hath mercy on thee. And you can say covenant of peace, that he is not going to destroy them anymore. That's never going to be removed. Now it's interesting that it's mountains and hills also, because in the flood, you're actually seeing the mountains and hills being covered up by the water, right? So this is another little nod to the flood. Just as the mountains and hills were covered up by the water during the flood, but they were still there. But in this case, even if they're gone, actually literally gone, my kindness will still not depart from you. It says, O thou afflicted, tossed with tempest, and not comforted. Behold, I will lay thy stones with fair colors, and lay thy foundations with sapphires. Does you have been afflicted, as though you were tossed with a storm, and never comforted. Once again, flood imagery, the idea of the ark being sort of tossed in this tempest. And he's saying, you guys have been like that with the Assyrian conquest. Behold, I will lay thy stones with fair colors, and lay thy foundations with sapphires. I will make thy windows of agates, and thy gates of carbuncles, and all thy borders of pleasant stones. So he's saying, I'm going to take all these buildings. We're going to sort of rebuild all of these things. I'm going to set your stones with antimony, a special kind of beautiful stone from the ancient Near East. They would use it as cosmetics, actually, grind it up and use it as cosmetics. Lay your foundations with sapphires. Your pinnacles will be rubies. Your gates will be made out of jewels. All your wall will be made out of precious stones. He's saying, listen, I know everything's been broken down. We're going to rebuild it, and we're going to rebuild it with precious stones. Everything is going to be so much better. It's going to be amazing to you. And all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and maybe even by the Lord is the best translation, and great shall be the peace of thy children. That Jehovah is going to teach their children. In righteousness shalt thou be established. Thou shalt be far from oppression, for thou shalt not fear, and from terror, for it shall not come to thee. As you'll be established in righteousness, and indeed even in sort of peace and justice. You could say righteousness, but even like rightness, maybe even. All this oppression is not going to come to you anymore. You're going to be fine from now on. Behold, they shall surely gather together against thee, not by me. Whosoever shall gather together against thee shall fall for my sake. Next time, When people gather together, it's not against you. It's not going to be because I brought them in on you or allowed them to come beat you up like I did with the Assyrians. This is going to be whoever tries to gather against you will fall because of me. I'm going to help defend you. I'm not going to let you be mostly destroyed this time. Behold, I've created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I've created the waster to destroy. As I'm the one that created all these people that do all these things anyway. I created the smith who blows the fire, that makes the weapons that goes out to do these things. I've created the guys, the soldiers that come in and destroy things. I'm the one that did all this. I'm controlling it all. So, since I'm the one that makes the smiths, no weapons that are formed against thee will prosper. I made the guys that make these weapons. I can make sure that their weapons are worthless if I want them to. Every tongue that shall revile against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. So everybody that judges you, that speaks against you in judgment, you will be condemned. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. Or their vindication comes from me, saith the Lord. It is, yes, all these horrible things have happened to you, but everything is going to be okay. I'm going to make sure everything's okay. We're going to rebuild. My covenant is never going to be abolished with you. Yes, I had to hide my face from you for a moment, but everything is going to be okay. To me, this is just one of the most beautiful chapters that we have in all of the Old Testament. It's just beautiful to me. And as we read this, let's now think about it a little bit in its context in 3rd Nephi. Why is he using this? And I think there's a few reasons. One of the main reasons is that Jesus is trying to comfort these people that have been through such a hard time. So think about 3rd Nephi. It's 3rd Nephi. Everything's been destroyed. There's a lot of destruction, similar to the Assyrian conquest. People are looking around and wondering what to do. A lot of people have died. So then he says, Sing, O barren, thou that didst not bear. Enlarge the place of thy tent. Lengthen thy cords and strengthen thy stakes. It seems totally desolate right now. But you are going to have more people that are going to repopulate this, just like they did back during the time of the Assyrians. He says, thy seed will inherit the Gentiles and make the desolate cities to be inhabited. There's been a lot of desolate cities in the destruction in 3rd Nephi. He says, don't worry about these things that have happened. Thy maker, thy husband, the Lord of hosts is his name. The God of the whole earth shall he be called. He now is going to help them rebuild because of all the destruction that has happened there in the early part of 3rd Nephi, in all the storms and everything. It says, For a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. In a little wrath I hid my face from thee for a moment, but with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, saith the Lord thy Redeemer. He's saying, yes, I had to allow this to happen to you for a moment, Nephites, but I'm going to have mercy on you. For this the waters of Noah unto me. And it's interesting, once again, that floods, waters have come up in the stead of thereof, it says in a few places in the Book of Mormon. Some of these places have been flooded, right? So literally, it's like the waters of Noah. I've sworn that I'm not going to destroy everything with the flood, but you guys have been a little bit flooded out, some of these places. But then he says, For the mountains shall depart, and the hills shall be removed. Literally, mountains and hills have moved. They have moved around. In some places, you have had mountains and hills that have removed and become flat and ruined the cities. And in some places, mountains and hills have come up and broken up the cities, right? So literally, this is literally fulfilled here. O afflicted, tossed with tempest, and not comforted. There was huge storms in 3rd Nephi. And he says, All thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children. That's literally what we get later in 3rd Nephi when Jesus literally teaches the children and then blesses them, right? And so we get throughout this chapter of 3rd Nephi, yes, this is the Assyrians. This is talking about the Israelites during the Assyrian period, during the kingdom of Judah. But Jesus is applying it to the people there in 3rd Nephi. So for me, this is just a beautiful and comforting chapter, that even though everything seems terrible sometimes, it's not always terrible. It doesn't have to be like that. Christ can come in and make everything okay, and he does that. That's one of the things that he does, and he will continue to do that. And he will do it across time and space. Did he come in and help the people after the Assyrians had come in? Yeah, he did. Did he help the Nephites after all the destruction they had seen? Yeah, they did. And can he help us? Yeah, he will. And to me, that's a beautiful image of Christ never abandoning us. The mountains will depart, the hills will be removed, but his kindness will not depart from us. And I really know that's true. So anyway, that's it for today. And we're almost done here with Deutero-Isaiah. We have one chapter of Deutero-Isaiah left, 55. There's a little bit of 55 in the Book of Mormon. And then after that, we're on our own. But then we're done with Deutero and we're into Trito, which is probably written during another time and place. We'll get to that more as we get there. But thanks for being with me today, and we'll see you guys next time.